After a startling call, Eala lashes out at Aryna Sabalenka. "You are not serious." "Just a moment." It was only an additional point. The next frenzy broke out. The line judge held up her hand. The audience became quiet. Eala went crazy. Her voice pierced through the tension like thunder as she said, "Are you kidding me?" Sabalenka grinned calmly and indifferently. Her eyes, however, sent a different message. This was not just an argument. It was a proclamation. Whispers have trailed Eala for months. Too raw, too youthful, too sentimental. However, she made the decision to stop swallowing it that evening. The stadium froze as she turned to face Sabalenka and said, "Say it again." No one was aware of it yet. However, this marked the start of a rivalry that would completely upend women's tennis. It was just going to be another nighttime contest. The sort that begins with polite grins, cheers, and the gentle sound of tennis balls thudding under the lights. Eala entered the court with her typical calm assurance, purposeful and focused, but with a deeper secret. She had spent months anticipating this match. The audience saw it as experience against ambition as Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1, the powerhouse, and the symbol of supremacy, stood on the opposite side of the net, stretching, grinning, and exuding the type of energy that screams, "I dominate this place." However, there was more to it than that. Eala was not only trying to score points. She was acting in a respectful manner. For the last year, she had battled to establish her top status. Told repeatedly that her enthusiasm was a weakness, that she was not ready, and that she was too emotional. Her brilliance was evident in every headline, but it was unpolished. She was sick of that term tonight. Meanwhile, Sabalenka had just emerged from her own storm. She had something to defend after a series of difficult defeats and rumors of conflict in the locker room. Her throne, her image, and her power. Eala was not simply another rival in that regard. Before she could rise, she posed a danger to be squashed. Thunderous serves and vicious rallies kicked off the opening set. The accuracy of Sabaleenka's power meta. Neither of them was eager to flinch first, and each shot sounded like a declaration. The scoreboard ticked steadily, 33-44, till the strain was almost intolerable. It was electrifying and heavy in the air. Each point seemed to be more significant than it ought to be. Sabalenka glanced across during the changeover and flashed that trademark smile that had crushed so many people's spirits in the past. Eala, however, did not turn away. She looked directly into that stare for the first time. Just shoot, no hesitation, no fear. The pundits sensed it as well. They were correct when one of them said, "There is something different about Eala tonight. She is not backing down." There was a change in her. Something irreversible. The following point started as the audience leaned forward. And then the time would come. The one that would halt time, quiet the crowd, and ignite the match's defining debate. But it will happen later. Because there was still a delicate, quivering quiet before the storm, just before everything detonated. When it occurred, the second set had just started. One long, grueling, and stunning rally. 23 shots. Refusing to blink, both players are pursuing the lines. Every argument left the audience breathless and on their feet. Then the moment arrived, the one that would set everything on fire. Eala hit a forehand down the line that was so accurate, clean and sharp that it kissed the chalk. The audience exploded. Sabalenka froze. Everyone thought it was a winner for a heartbeat. The call-out came next. The voice of the line judge cut like a knife through the commotion. Confusion followed the cheers, and finally there was stillness. Eala halted in the middle of her stride, her chest heaving. Her gaze flicked to the target. A discernible trace of the ball had touched the white line's very edge. With a look of amazement on her face, she pointed at it. "That is in," she said, her voice breaking with passion. "That is definitely in." The chair umpire remained still. With a sneer on her lips, Sabalenka raised an eyebrow as she approached the net. "Just loud enough for someone to hear," she remarked. "Maybe check your aim next time." It was an attempt at humor. Or maybe not. It was petrol on fire, either way. Eala lost her fury. "Are you serious at this moment?" With a snap, she moved in closer. The ball was in. Calm and aloof, the umpire peered down. "The call stands, Eala. Play, please." The audience started whispering. Flashes clicked, phones raised. Everyone sensed that something was falling apart. Eala faced Sabalenka once again. With an ambiguous face, Sabalenka shrugged and said, "You saw it. Tell them it was in." "Not my call," she smiled. She crumbled at that smile. Eala shouted, "You cannot be serious," and her voice reverberated throughout the arena. The expression, which sprang out of sheer annoyance, ignited the arena. The spectators gasped. Commentators became quiet. Even Sabalenka seems temporarily taken aback. Eala was more angry than anybody had ever seen her. The audience had already taken sides when the umpire gave a warning for unsportsmanlike behavior. Half applauded the passion of the young underdog. Half booed, urging Sabalenka and poise. Grinning as if she had won more than a point, she made her way back to the baseline. But even she sensed the change on the inside. This Eala was not the composed, orderly one she had previously seen. After too many silent humiliations, this person had snapped and was struggling for attention. Eala's enthusiasm drastically altered once play restarted. Every movement was sharper, every stroke more forceful. She had stopped participating in the game. She was striving for respect and recognition. Sabalenka observed that the rallies were becoming shorter. The points became fights. Ia broke serve at 3-2 with a shout that seemed to cut through the cacophony. The audience let forth a yell. It was impossible to miss the fire in her eyes. However, Sabalenka used her expertise to slow down the game, break the pace, and take her time between points just as it seemed that she had turned things around. Every time she paused, she would look at Eala with the same taunt and grin, making the tension between them more intimate. What had begun as a poor decision turned into a conflict between pride, ego, and determination. It was not the score that made it the most thrilling moment of the game, according to commentators, but rather what it indicated. An umpire's stillness that altered everything, a champion's provocation, and a young player's breaking point. Long after the game was over, the call, just one word, became the focal point of a storm. Because something greater than tennis had started in that moment. A conflict, a declaration, a boundary between periods rather than in the court. The stadium was a hive of activity by the conclusion of the game. Sabalenka persevered because of her experience, even though Eala had battled to the very end. The handshake was icy, a quick touch of fingers, and the eyes were fiery and bitter. Every frame was caught by cameras, and the world saw it in a matter of minutes. Before the players had even entered the locker room, videos were all over social media. Alice lashes out at Sabalenka. "You are not serious." The fury that rocked Dubai. The headlines were ruthless. However, the supporters were also. My fans came together on one side to stand up for her. She is correct. The ball was in. The umpire stole from her. Passion does not equate to contempt. It is necessary for tennis. To support their claims, her supporters cut slow-motion footage of the ball mark and drew circles around the thin chalk dust. Tennis was no longer the only thing. It was about a young athlete who dared to question the hierarchy and about fairness. However, Sabalenka's supporters were as boisterous. She became uncontrollable. A professional does not act that way. You do not belong here if you cannot manage pressure. Eala was even accused by some of creating drama to maintain her relevance. A claim that hurt more than any defeat. Aryna Sabalenka, meanwhile, was the first to speak up. It is tennis. Sometimes emotions take over. I have been there too, but you have got to be collected, she replied with a little grin during her post-match news conference. The remark appeared cool, even elegant, but it was hurtful. It seemed like counsel from a veteran to many. Others saw it as civility disguised as disdain. Later, in a more subdued setting, Eala, still readied from the match, said. She said, "I only wanted justice. I was not being disrespectful. I was unable to keep quiet." Just that sentence became a platform-wide rallying cry. All I wanted was for fairness to become popular suddenly. Fans transformed her remarks into quotations, images, and even modifications for TikTok. However, criticism followed every sharing, and reaction followed every defense. Journalists covering tennis started analyzing every aspect of the call. Some said it was hard to see the ball well due to the umpire's stance. Others felt that although the call was right, The response wasn't. Additionally, both players remained silent, at least in public, during all the commotion. Insiders whispered behind closed doors that there was more friction between Eala and Sabalenka than just that one call. A sarcastic remark in the corridor days before, a stare-down during warm-ups. Piece by piece, it all started to come to light. Perhaps the cause was not the call. Perhaps there was a spark on a stack of petrol that was about to catch fire. The scene grew legendary as the hours stretched into days, and it was reenacted, examined, and exaggerated. You cannot become a meme in 2 words. Everyone knew the narrative was not over, and while the internet debated, Eala's look from that night, a mixture of anger, bewilderment, and heartbreak, started to haunt the sports discourse. It would be more than a match the next time these two crossed paths. It would be private. Silence was more powerful than any interview in the days that followed. Alex vanished from the public eye. No remarks, tweets, or press. Just quiet. However, you are no longer protected by quiet. All it does is give the world time to construct its own narrative. Sports talk stations again aired her rant. Every move, phrase, and glance between her and Sabalenka was examined by analysts. They referred to it as the breakdown, the cost of immaturity, and the moment she lost control. Few people dared to publicly express their admiration for her fire, while others silently predicted that it would plague her early career. Sabalenka's camp, meanwhile, maneuvered precisely. Her public relations staff created the story. Despite the turmoil, Aryna remained collected, professional, and calm. They published excellent training videos. Laughing, grinning, and exuding confidence. She seemed unflinching, unfazed, and triumphant. It was an image control masterclass. And it was successful. The headlines gradually changed. Sabalenka sets an example for the future generation with her poise. And the weight of IA's silence increased with each headline. IA played the game 100 times inside her little Madrid flat. She heard the audience, saw the call, and saw the ball strike the line frame by frame. Every detail left a scar on her mind. That evening, she lost more than just a point. She was no longer given any leeway. She experienced the cruelty of perception for the first time. Her coach attempted to dissuade her. She shook her head, saying, "Let it go, Alex. This will pass." "No, it won't," she muttered. "Not until I confront her once again." Because that one call was no longer the focus. It has to do with how fast the world changed. How a moment of candor might turn into conceit. How a young woman's expression of emotion turns into a weapon against her. The fine followed. A $5,000 fine for using foul language while playing. Although it was not very severe, it seemed like yet another setback and a reminder that she had been branded. The Federation made a succinct statement. "We maintain the highest standards of behavior." For Eala, however, it was like a stone-carved sentence. Her supporters reacted more forcefully on social media. By contrasting her response with that of male players who had performed worse but received less punishment, they exposed double standards. Timelines were overrun with footage of legendary outbursts, rackets being broken, and umpires being yelled at. However, Eala was the one who was deemed impolite in some way. Then Sabalenka tweeted something that rekindled the storm just as it seemed to be fading. One picture on Instagram. A smirk, a practice court. The caption is usually somber. Everyone understood precisely who it was directed at, even though there were no tags or mentions. The comments section blew up. "She is engaging in trolling. Behavior of a queen. I adore it, yet it is petty." Eala noticed it. She did not block her, did not remark, and did not enjoy it. That evening, she went back to the court and said, "Next time, let us see who is serious." She just gazed at it for a long time, her mouth hard, her heart steady. Just her, a bucket of balls, and the sound of her own breathing. No cameras, no audience. Every serve cracked more loudly than the previous one. Every forehand cut.